We are following tonight senior administration officials telling CNN the U.S. is now providing manned aerial surveillance planes over Nigeria in order to try to find the more than 200 girls kidnapped by terrorists there. The United States is also sharing satellite images with the Nigerian government, but the question remains whether the United States should support negotiating with terrorists. Negotiating with terrorists is something America has, in practice, vowed to never do, but it may happen. A Nigerian official says it's a real possibility. And the leader of Boko Haram, he's the one setting the terms.
Wallah, billahi alladhi la ilaha illahu, ha'ula'i al-banat, la takhruj min yadina illa ba'da ma taraktum ikhwanana fi sijnikum.
On that same video released today by the French news agency Agence France Presse, these images reportedly the kidnapped girls chanting, "Praise be to Allah," their heads covered. If what you're looking at is authentic, it is the first time we have seen any of the girls since they were taken 29 days ago. This video with all of those girls covered, sitting so far from home, chanting the Quran. U.S. officials are now closely examining the video for clues, and they say they have no reason to believe the tape is not authentic, although they are not sure when it was made. Congressman Peter King, who called for Boko Haram to be designated a terrorist group 3 years ago, will join me along with the first man to attack terrorist financing for the United States, Juan Zarate, in just a moment. But first, Nema Albagar. She made the daunting trip to the girls' village, and she spoke with one of them who escaped.
In here, in these rooms, is where the girls were sleeping when armed men in what they describe as military uniforms came to their dormitory gate and told them that they'd come to protect them. The girls started to assemble in the yard as ordered to. They didn't realize who the men really were until it was too late.
He said, okay, we enter this lorry.
This girl managed to escape. She's now too fearful to show her face, too fearful to go back.
A big lorry.
Big lorry?
Yes.
They came with a big lorry?
Yes.
Was it one or more?
7.
7 lorries?
Yes.
Trucks, motorbikes. Residents here tell us this raid was effectively a shopping trip for Boko Haram. Over 200 girls dragged from their beds to be sold off as bounty. A message that the militant group's edicts on female education must be heeded. But a way also for big men with guns to make money off terrified girls.
If indeed Chibok, I will never go again.
You'll never go back to school?
Yes.
Because they made you afraid?
Yes.
Before the militants left, they destroyed everything they could. Textbooks, the library, the laboratory, their attempt to forever shutter this school. Elizabeth and Mary are friends. Members of the same church, their daughters were also friends, hoping one day to study medicine. They and many of their classmates never made it home from school.
We are pleasing them to leave our doctors.
They say they still feel powerless, no closer to finding their daughters nearly a month after they were taken.
Nema, those pictures of the school and the beds with the metal and the mattresses burned out. I mean, it's frightening and powerful. And I know that it was dangerous what you did. The assignment, you had a very tough time getting to Chibok from the capital and where you are tonight. It would normally take about a day, but I know it took you and your crew nearly 4 days to get there.
Well, I think it just really gives you a sense of how impenetrable that terrain is, Aaron. It was a tough trip, but I think what made it tougher is that when you got out into those wide open spaces, you really were on your own. This Nigerian forced reinforcement and build-up that the government keeps speaking about, that's meant to be hunting for the girls, they were pretty light on the ground in the areas we were in, and there were constant reports and rumors about movement, still movement by Boko Haram in those villages surrounding Chibok, pretty much with impunity, Aaron.
All right, Nema, thank you very much, and really amazing reporting. Thank you so much for doing that. And joining me now is Republican Congressman Peter King. He serves on the Homeland Security and Intelligence Committees, along with the former Deputy National Security Advisor for Combating Terrorism, Juan Zarate, the first ever Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Terrorist Financing and Financial Crimes. Congressman King, let me start with this question here about a swap. Girls for terrorists. The Obama administration said today American policy is not to negotiate with terrorists. But should they support Nigeria freeing a lot of terrorists if that's what it takes to get these girls back?
Erin, this is one of those terribly difficult decisions, morally difficult, but I would say no, that we cannot negotiate. Now, for my daughter or my wife or my sister, I realize the human impact, but the fact is, once you start negotiating with terrorists, it just leads to more violence, it will lead to more kidnappings. These people cannot be appeased. So no, as tough as that decision is, I would say we cannot negotiate with terrorists. We cannot allow ourselves to fall into that trap, because in the end, it'll result in more death and more carnage.
Do you agree, Juan?
Well, I think it's a very difficult situation, as the Congressman mentioned. The reality is that this group and other groups like Al-Qaeda and Islamic Maghreb have made millions of dollars off of kidnap for ransom operations.
Right.
And continuing to deal with them actually fuels not only their funding but their operations. And so it's a very difficult balance. Certainly the U.S. should not support that. Whether or not the Nigerians do, that's going to be their choice.
Now, Juan, late last week we were told, I was told at one point, 2 weeks ago by Nigerian sources that the girls were probably broken up into smaller groups. U.S. intelligence sources are now also saying that, and also that some may have been moved across the border. Obviously, we do not know the video that I just showed. We don't know exactly when it was shot, and we can't tell you for sure it was a large group of girls, although they're saying they have no reason to think that it's not genuine. If it is a large group of girls, is this a sign of hope that there's so many in one place?
Well, it's hopeful in two ways, Aaron. One, that they're alive and they appear to be at least okay for now, at least based on the video. And secondly, that they are collected, they are together. And I think you're right. The concern for counterterrorism and security officials is that the girls would be separated into small groups, sent across borders to Chad, Cameroon, Niger, and other places. That makes it incredibly difficult then to hunt them back and to have them returned. And so I think having them together creates an opportunity here potentially for those trying to search and find the girls.
Right, and of course the U.S. at this point still saying no special forces or boots on the ground. Congressman King, should the Obama administration change that, even though that could mean, and I think people would have to accept this possibility, loss of American life?
Well, I think I don't want to advocate the use of troops, but put it this way: if the president decided to use special forces, I certainly would not oppose them. I think right now, though, our main asset is providing intelligence, providing surveillance, working with the Nigerians rather than us actually being involved in any type of a special forces operation. But if the president did decide to do that and he thought it would work, I would certainly support him on it. But I'm not urging him to do that. I realize all the complexities involved, all the dangers involved. But again, as Commander-in-Chief, if he made that decision, I would support him.
You would support him. Now, what about, you wrote a letter in 2011 saying designate Boko Haram a terrorist organization. It wasn't done until 6 months ago. You're among those blaming the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for this. You said this is clearly a failure of the Secretary of State. But President Bush's ambassador to Nigeria said that that's unfair. He was on Fox News this weekend. He said, I don't think it's fair. And along with a good many other Nigerian experts at the time, we all opposed designation. Their view was don't elevate the group. We can hurt them in other ways. Put a bounty on this guy's head. Have guys like Juan Zarate out there making sure these guys can't spend their money.
No, I disagree with that. I strongly believed myself, Congressman Meehan, and this was bipartisan, by the way. This wasn't just Republican members of Congress saying that Boko Haram should be designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Also, the Attorney General's office, Lisa Monaco, who was the Deputy Attorney General, she wrote to the State Department saying that the position of the Obama Justice Department was that it should be declared that Boko Haram should declare a foreign terrorist organization, because then they could have gone after people who contributed to it. They could have taken extra steps to dry up their funds, and it would have, I think, focused world attention on Boko Haram. And the fact I give Secretary Kerry credit for doing it in 2013, but we asked for it in 2011 and twice in 2012.
Quickly before we go, Juan, would that designation of a formal designation for the group have made a difference?
I think the Congressman's right. It would have not only focused more resources and attention on Boko Haram, but it would have forced the policy question, Aaron, which I think still exists, which is how are we going to treat this group, which is growing in its virulence? It's a Western outpost of al-Qaeda, has ties with other elements of the al-Qaeda network. What should the U.S. role be in treating these regional groups? And that's a broader policy and strategy decision that goes along with that designation.
All right. Thanks very much to both of you. I appreciate it.